those sort of plans, and I would never want someone else to not.
I'm so sorry that you have to grow up in a world where this is still present.
Of taking care of people also really feeds me, and I think that is in many ways.
This wasn't just a fashion snub, this was a global power play. One quiet request, one silent refusal, and in between a ripple that shook the most elite fashion rooms in Paris, Milan, and LA, Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, once the darling of luxury brands, thought she could bend Hermès to her will. What she didn't expect was Hermès bending her story instead. It started softly.
Ready for this one. So it all started as something Meghan Markle thought would be this quiet, classy little favor. You know, the kind of luxury request.
Like all power games do, a call, a design request, a whispered favor, the kind of thing most celebrities get answered with a private courier and a bow. But Hermès isn't most brands. They don't chase, they don't flatter, and they definitely don't play second fiddle to anyone, not even a duchess. Behind the scenes, the Paris ateliers heard the request, but the response didn't come with silk or gold. It came with silence. And when Hermès goes silent, the whole fashion world listens.
So that I'm friends with. But, you know, I think my learns were to continue to give yourself.
That silence turned into whispers. The whispers turned into headlines. And suddenly, Meghan wasn't the star of the story anymore. She was the cautionary tale. There's so much to unpack here, from that private request to the public humiliation to the symbolic strike that made fashion insiders gasp. But what really cuts deep is how Hermès didn't raise their voice once, and still they won. If you want to follow this story to the end, hit subscribe, drop a like, and stay locked in. Because what Hermès did next wasn't a reaction, it was strategy. It always begins quietly. No press release, no entourage. Just a discreet message from a private assistant to one of the most powerful fashion houses in the world. Meghan's team wanted a Birkin, not just any Birkin, but a custom piece, tailored to her exact vision. The request wasn't ordinary. It came with sketches, fabric samples, and a proposed engraving of a personal quote. Even the rollout was planned. Debut the bag at a Montecito charity gala where every camera would capture it, and every luxury insider would whisper, Hermès bent for Meghan. Older than most monarchies, their waiting list longer than the careers of most celebrities. You don't order a Birkin, you earn one. And Meghan's team made one critical mistake. They approached Hermès like any other PR accessory brand.
Glamorous night. Glitzy lights, a humanitarian award, and a red carpet.
And honestly, inside the Paris atelier, the response was instant and icy. No meetings, no we'll see. Just a carefully worded note. Madame Hermès does not accept external creative direction on heritage pieces. Translation? No, not softly, not diplomatically. A solid, elegant wall. Meghan wasn't used to that kind of no. When she asks, people deliver. This time, they didn't. And when the most exclusive brand in the world tells a duchess no, it isn't a refusal, it's a message. And that message wasn't meant to stay private. Hermès knew exactly what they were doing. They were just getting started. Because a single no from them doesn't end in silence, it echoes. The thing about Hermès, they never need to shout. When they want a story told, they just let it leak.
But I happen to have the exact motif in my upcoming July 23rd read.
A few days after Meghan's team received the polite but icy no, fashion editors in Paris started getting quiet calls, not statements, hints. A certain celebrity had pushed for a custom Birkin. A certain house had refused. No names were attached at first. They didn't have to be. Paris fashion insiders talk fast. They don't need headlines, just the right whisper in the right cafe. By the end of that week, the whisper had shape. Meghan Markle tried to customize a Birkin. They said no. Then came the masterstroke. An editor from a luxury blog posted 4 simple words in a now viral thread. They said no publicly. Hermès never released a press statement. They didn't confirm, they didn't deny, they didn't have to, because when you're Hermès, silence is confirmation. And that silence cut deeper than a headline ever could.
Nesting and healing, and also, I don't know if I had the bandwidth at that time.
For a modern audience. For Meghan, the snub wasn't just personal, it was public. For Hermès, it wasn't personal at all. It was a reminder to everyone watching that their legacy isn't for sale, not even to a duchess. What should have been a quiet private rejection was now fashion's worst-kept secret. Editors loved it. Stylists dissected it. And Meghan's carefully polished image, the one built on control, access, and elevated status, started to fray at the edges. But the real blow hadn't even landed yet. Because once Hermès goes quiet, the fashion world starts talking, and when they talk, it spreads like wildfire. In fashion, silence isn't just silence, it's a verdict. The moment Hermès pulled their quiet power play, the ripple started. First in Paris, then Milan, then Los Angeles. Stylists whispered it at fittings, editors shared it over late-night dinners. Meghan Markle wasn't just refused, she was shut out. Don't pull a Meghan. That's what a London stylist reportedly said to a rising star who tried to jump the waiting list for a limited edition gown. And just like that, her name turned from a status symbol to a warning label.
And they put on the TV because all of us kids had to stay there until our parents could come and pick us up. That commercial happens to come on.
What made it sting wasn't Hermès alone. It was how fast the fashion world followed suit. RSVPs to exclusive showcases that used to flood her team started arriving slower, then fewer. Then, not at all. Certain brand ambassadors suddenly weren't available for photo ops. Invitations to couture weeks landed everywhere except Montecito. The shift wasn't loud, it was surgical. Fashion doesn't scream when it wants you out, it just stops letting you in. Meghan's PR team saw it unfolding in real time. Their Duchess, who once turned heads at every red carpet and luxury event, was suddenly standing outside the glass house she used to shine inside of. They scrambled to reshape the narrative, to paint the Birkin snub as a misunderstanding, a creative difference. But the fashion world had already decided. And the harshest part, Hermès never uttered a single word. Their silence became a storm.
Or in year one, where you have the show complementing the brand, where content and commerce are meeting.
And Meghan? She was right at the center of it. But if there's one thing Meghan Markle doesn't do, it's disappear quietly. If they froze her out, she was going to fire back. Meghan Markle has never been the type to take a silent blow and bow out. If the fashion world froze her out, she was going to light her own fire. Within weeks of the Birkin debacle, whispers started circling about a new venture, a luxury concept line, private meetings with creative directors who didn't owe Hermès their loyalty. Then the official move dropped. Own It, Meghan's personal fashion and lifestyle initiative.
Unthinkable. Not another interview, not a podcast rant. This time she went for the jugular.
The message was loud and clear. If they won't open their doors, I'll build my own house. The concept? Modern luxury without permission. No gatekeepers, no legacy brands dictating who gets in. Just Meghan, the Duchess who doesn't wait in line. At least that was the pitch. But behind the glossy branding and rehearsed empowerment language, fashion insiders saw it for what it was, a clapback, a carefully packaged way to say, I don't need Hermès. Hermès, of course, didn't blink. They didn't issue statements or whisper threats, but their silence didn't mean they weren't watching. Paris doesn't forget a challenge like that.
Every time you think the Meghan Markle circus can't get any messier, someone lobs another grenade.
And the fashion world? It wasn't convinced. Critics labeled Own It as revenge couture, expensive, loud, but lacking the centuries-old weight of legacy. Stylists called it a statement, not a standard. It wasn't enough to rewrite the narrative. If anything, it highlighted the gap between Meghan's reach and Hermès' throne. Meghan was trying to turn the snub into a movement, but Hermès was about to turn the movement into a moment she'd never forget. Because when Hermès strikes back, they don't need headlines. One symbolic gesture is enough to shake the room.
As Meghan Markle is boiling. Not simmering, not warm, we're talking full rolling boil.
Hermès doesn't clap back with press statements. They don't do press tours. When they move, it's quiet, deliberate, and lethal. It happened at their next runway presentation in Paris. The lights dimmed, the room stilled, and the first model walked out holding a crimson Birkin, deep blood red, hand-stitched, gold-plated hardware, and a single engraving carved into the leather like scripture, toujours prêt, always ready. No one said Meghan's name. They didn't have to. Every insider in that room understood exactly who the message was for. The crimson Birkin wasn't just a bag. It was a statement. Meghan had tried to insert herself into the brand's legacy. Hermès responded by doubling down on their own. No collaboration, no negotiation, just power. Silent, regal, untouchable. Within minutes of that bag appearing on the runway, the fashion world exploded. Editors live tweeted the moment, blogs ran with headlines like Hermès just sent a message. Influencers whispered, that's the Meghan bag. Back in Montecito, sources say Meghan watched the show. That red Birkin, held like a crown jewel, wasn't just a rejection, it was a public reminder of her place. Not at the top of the fashion ladder, not even near it, outside. The silence from Hermès was louder than anything she could say. This was their battlefield, and she'd wandered into it uninvited. But Hermès wasn't finished. The real blow, the one that made the entire fashion world hold its breath, was still waiting. The final blow didn't come with a press conference, it came with art. Weeks after the Crimson Birkin moment, Hermès unveiled an installation at their Paris flagship, a mirrored sculpture bathed in soft gold light. At its center sat a single vintage Birkin, untouched, unmodified, preserved like a relic. Below it, one engraving shimmered on the mirror's base. Some things lose their value when they ask to be seen. No hashtags, no press tags, no names. But everyone in that room knew exactly who that line was aimed at.
Well, I think 5 years ago was a very different situation for all of us. And,
It was a masterclass in power. Meghan had tried to make noise. Hermès answered with elegance and silence. The message was brutal in its calm. Heritage doesn't need attention. Attention needs heritage. Fashion critics called it the quietest, loudest strike of the year. Stylists posted it without context. Editors didn't even need to explain it. And for Meghan, this wasn't just a rejection anymore. It was a freeze-out, a cultural exile from the rooms that once courted her. Her PR team scrambled again, but this time there was no spin big enough to drown out what Hermès had etched into gold. Because this wasn't just a moment, it was a permanent line in the sand. And just like that, Meghan Markle, once a rising fashion darling, was watching the world's most exclusive luxury house close the door and bolt it from the inside. But Hermès' silence didn't just end the conversation, it rewrote it. Meghan Markle came in with the confidence of a duchess who thought the fashion world would always bend. Hermès reminded her that some empires don't kneel, they watch, and when they strike, they do it without a sound. This wasn't just about a Birkin bag. It was about power, quiet, ancient, unshakable power. Meghan tried to edit history. Hermès reminded her they are history. She made noise, they made silence, and silence won. Fashion isn't Hollywood. It doesn't forgive loudness. It doesn't chase relevance. It crowns legacy, and Hermès wears that crown like iron. Meghan's story became a cautionary tale, not with headlines, but with whispers, not with statements, but with silence. And if there's one thing the fashion world never forgets, it's who gets shut out. This is Hollywood Daily Reports. If you want to keep walking this story lane with us, hit subscribe, drop a like, and stay locked in. Because this royal fashion war isn't over, not by a long shot.